to behave. uh, um, as we discussed this morning, if we can cultivate loving kindness and compassion through such training, such meditations, then it helps to build up inner courage, confidence, and inner strength. And that is one of the, experience those practitioners have who practice loving kindness, compassion all their life. That's what they have found. And that is what His Holiness Dalai Lama also always, in any different meeting that he have with different groups, those different meetings with different groups, one of the very most asked questions to him is, how is he able to keep positive, not become so bitter, and how can he keep on going on, despite all the challenges, all the problems that he have experienced and went through throughout his life, and continue to face those challenges. Despite that, he's one of the most cheerful persons, most happy persons, and he always says it's because of the compassion. The practice of the compassion is the one that give him all of that. In relation to that, I thought maybe, I might read something or quotation from one of his books, teachings, where it can be yeah, he in one of his teachings and books, he talked about, a heart full of love and compassion is the main source of inner strength, goodwill, happiness, and mental tranquility. And that is what he found, and in another, he says, I have found the greatest degree of inner tranquility comes from the development of love and compassion. The more we care for the happiness of others, the greater our sense of well-being. Cultivating a close, warm-hearted feeling for others automatically put the mind at ease. It is the ultimate source of success in life. So, also if we can cultivate loving kindness and compassion, definitely, it will give you also courage, self-confidence, inner strength. And then nothing can knock you down. No difficult how much challenging it might be. It will not be able to knock you down. At the moment, we are very fragile. Even a small problem can knock out down, even small problems can devastate us. Even small problem can lead us to a strong depressions. All of that because we don't have the inner strength and courage to deal with the problems. On the other hand, if we are able to develop such loving kindness, compassion with that kind of practice, training in the mind, nothing can disturb you. One of the example, I like to give or share is when you have cultivated a big compassion, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, it's like there's so much inner strength, courage, confidence that you become like the mountains that cannot be moved by any kind of storms, no matter how stormy that it is, no matter how much rain, no matter how much sun, no matter how much heat, it cannot move the mountains. So someone who has such loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, then just like the mountains, they feel the mountains, feel the rain, the heat, the sun, storms. While it feel it, but it doesn't disturb. It cannot move. Same way when someone has such love and compassion, bodhicitta, you feel the pains of others. It is not that you don't feel. You feel the pain of others when you see the pain of others. You feel the pain, but then it doesn't move your stillness, the tranquility, the inner peace and tranquility. Unlike like at the moment. Unlike like at the moment, the emotional response, compassions that comes without that kind of training, and as question was asked this morning, then we become overwhelmed when we see the pain, suffering of others. We become overwhelmed, and then that can make us kind of depressed, and many other, feelings that can lead to many other feelings. But someone who have developed such true love, compassion basis on the training, they feel the pain, but it doesn't affect the way it affects us, being overwhelmed, helpless, all of those feelings, Another example can be ocean, The oceans on the surface, it feel all the waves, small wave, big waves, all kind of waves. The oceans feel the wave, but that wave cannot destroy the stillness in the depth of the oceans. Still, on the depth in the ocean, there is stillness. Even outside, there is so much waves. And that is how someone who have cultivated such, that's how they feel. They feel the pains of others like those waves, but still it doesn't disturb their inner tranquility, inner stillness, and therefore it doesn't kind of overwhelm them, destroy their inner peace. And that inner peace and that inner strength is that help them keep on moving, and continue. So such is the incredible power and strength of the compassion. Also, when we are able to develop such a strong love and compassion, there is no space for self-hatred, low self-esteem, you know. Mm. Low self-esteem, self-hatred, they come from because of negative image of ourselves in our mind. When we think about ourselves, there is a negative image of ourselves, and that's where. But when you have that kind of loving kindness, compassion, both to the mind, you don't have that negative image of yourself. Instead, you have a positive image of yourself. And when you have positive image of yourself, there's no space for that. Also, not only ourselves, we also have better image of others, and therefore, there's no space for hatred for others as well. While we understand, they have their own defect, they have their own problem, they have their own mistake, as ordinary beings, as sentient beings, unenlightened beings, we make mistake, others make mistake. We learn from mistake, others learn from mistakes, we have our own strength, we have our own weakness. Others have their own strength, others their own weakness, and we become, with that understanding, we become more gentle, more understanding, more gentleness, more forgiving. And when you have that kind of feeling, then, there's no space for hatred for others. And when there's no hatred, then there is no harmful actions, violent actions, harmful actions, due to that hatred feelings or attitude. So therefore, again, that is why the compassion is so important, so important. So we spoke about the importance of the compassions, having when we have been able to cultivate compassion, how it protect others and oneself, how that is the source of all the spiritual realizations, how that loving kindness, compassion give us so much inner peace, stillness, tranquility, courage, self-confidence, all of that. We will also discuss a little bit about but certain meditation practice to cultivate that loving kindness, compassion, which we did this morning, a little bit of that practice, meditations. So again, and not only we need to develop that loving kindness, compassion in our everyday life all the time for our own well-being, for the well-being of others. Not only we need to practice that in order to achieve our ultimate happiness or fully enlightened state, as well as we need to practice in order to be more, to find more peace, tranquility in our life while we're on the path, still in samsara. Still while we are in samsara, trying to practice, trying to make progress on the path, there are a lot of challenges, obstacles, difficulties that we might encounter, which we will encounter physically, emotionally, on different level, but having that compassion give us a great tool to deal with those problem, suffering, challenges, to deal them much positively in better way. So that is why we need to cultivate that. And we need to cultivate that. We have to put more effort, even more, towards those which make our life more difficult and miserable. Towards those beings that make our life normally, we feel like we need to have compassion for those who are kind to us, who are nice to us. We should act them kindly. We should be compassionate to them. We should act compassionately, but not for those who make our life miserable, isn't it? We feel like those who try to make our life miserable, problematic, who create conflict, it feels like, why should we treat them compassionate? Why should we treat them kindly? They don't deserve that. They should be treated with violently, with anger. That is sometimes how we might feel like, But here, the Buddha's advice is, we need to put even more effort to feel kind and compassion to those who make our life more difficult, more miserable. For our own well-being and also for that person, because that person is object of more compassion than others. That person need more compassion than other people's. Other people who are kind, compassionate, they require less compassion than those who are, mentally, aggressive, physically aggressive, verbally aggressive, where their mind is too much delusions, too much strong delusions. They require more help. It's like if you have two children, one is taking care of their life very well, and one is having a struggle in their life. Who require more help, more compassion? The one who struggle more, isn't it? The one other, he can take care of him, or he is able to take care of themselves without so much help. He is able to take care of himself, herself quite well. but the others is struggling. He's unable to take care of himself. That require more attention, more help, more care. Same here, the Buddha's advice is same in both Bodhisattva's practice. That is same if there are two sentient beings. One is kind, compassion, caring, loving. That means they are able to take care of themselves well to a certain degree in their spiritual path, in their life. But someone, who is constantly angry, upset, full of delusion, and act, negatively, harmful ways, that person, that sentient beings, is totally lost, totally confused, unable to take care of themselves. That person requires more love, more compassion, more care. And therefore that person become even more stronger object of compassion than the others. Again, it's very different way of thinking than we normally think. But if you really reflect, contemplate, if you really give time to contemplate, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. Even though it makes sense, but in everyday life, it's hard to feel compassion for such people. By naturally, it's hard to feel compassion for them. But we have to put more effort to feel compassion. If you put more effort, it requires more effort to feel compassion for them, more practice, more effort. And if you are able to put more effort, more practice, eventually you will be able to feel compassion for them. It's not something impossible. It is possible. Is it going to be easy? Definitely not. Mm. And His Holiness Dalai Lama, shared one story of one monk. I think many of you have heard that. A monk who has been imprisoned for 20 years and tortured, and then after he was released, he was able to escape to India. And he met His Holiness Dalai Lama, and then His Holiness says, they were having conversation, one of casual conversations, and one day in one of those casual conversations, the monk said something about, there were a few instances of danger when he was in prison. And Dalai Lama said, first thought in his mind, he thought there was danger to his life. That was in his mind, that was what he thought when he spoke about few instances of danger, And he asked, what kind of danger? What kind of danger, few instances, what kind of danger you face when here? Then the monk replied, there was a few instances during those 20 years that he might lose compassion for those people who are torturing him, who put him in prison, and those who are torturing him. What it means is that he was, in those 20 years, even though he was in prison for no really reasons and torture, but still he was able to keep compassion for those. That's very inspiring. It's not easy, but he did. And he was able to do it because I'm sure he put a lot of effort to keep alive that compassion and not lose that. not for a day, a week, but for 20 years, not having any bitter and anger, but instead compassion. But what it also shows is our mind. We have same mind. We have the same ability, potential, if we train our mind, just like he did, And just like himself, many of the practitioners, real practitioner, not everyone has same success level like this monk had, Not every monks had compassion or able to keep compassion, Some of them, their struggles in their practice. They might feel anger, but many of the practitioners, they have shared, some of the best practice that they have able to do in their life was when they were in prison. Because circumstance, the situation is such, either you practice or you get knocked out. You become crazy, in such circumstances. Your mind can get crazy because you have been in prison and tortured. Many of the cases because you are just a monk, just because you are a teacher, nothing more than that. So of course, when we are angry and upset, our mind starts going everywhere. Recently I met someone, from Europe, quite young guy, and he broke off with his girlfriend because his girlfriend left him after many years, and they broke, and she got in relation with someone, and it really hurt him. So he said he hasn't been able to sleep for almost 2 years, and always thinking, he almost feel like this anger and rages and feel like killing that, that kind of thoughts. That is how crazy our mind can get. That's how crazy our mind can get. So, on the other hand, if you really put effort to practice, instead of anger, if you can keep certain level of compassion, then, you are able to keep your mind calm, not boiling with that kind of rages, but to be able to calm. And so, again, we talk about inner peace and inner tranquility. So it helps to bring you inner peace, inner tranquility. It puts you in more easy state. And when you are more peace, calm in that way, you are able to use your intelligence, your common sense, your wisdom better to make decisions, whether this is best or that is best, what will be best, short-term, long-term, to respond, not to respond, how to respond, whether this is the best response or that, whether that is the best response, everything's, when you lose that calm, peace, tranquility, and rest, by that rest, then you cannot use that. You lose that ability. And that's where we make most mistake. We become most vulnerable at that time. We become most vulnerable when there is so much anger and rage in your mind. because in that situation, you are likely to make the worst mistake that you make. The worst mistake you will regret your whole life. A lot of people who end up in prisons by murdering someone is a moment of rage. A lot of time. Is a lot of time is a moment of losing their mind. In that moment, they lose their mind. They lose my mind of that anger, that rage. And in that moment, they are not aware what they are doing and consequences of their actions. They are not aware, or they cannot think properly. What is the consequences of that? What that means? Once you engage in that action, and then you ruin your life, you take someone's life, you destroy someone's life, you destroy your life, ruin your life. Not only your life, you ruin your family's and friends' life. You are the not only one who is experiencing the pain, your whole family is experiencing that pain. Whole family is carrying that pain. And you might regret it, you might feel ashamed, embarrassed, whatever, all you can feel all, but damage done. And that is a moment of that strong anger, hatred, rages. And counter, force for that kind of anger, hatred, and rages, or the antidote is the compassion, love and compassion. So yeah, we are talking about the need to cultivate compassion even more strongly in those difficult situations for those difficult peoples, which make our life not so easy or more difficult. They require even more compassion. And it's the same in modern world. There are leaders, who are creating harmful environment, violent environment. Normally they become object of our anger, But from Buddha's advice is they should be the main object of your compassion. They need more compassion than others. They need more compassion than Dalai Lama. He doesn't need your compassion, but they need your compassion. If those leaders or any individual, if they can really feel the love and compassion of the others, they will change. Their mind will change. Their attitude will change. Their action will change. That is the experience of a lot of people, who grow up with certain environment, violent environment, never felt love, compassion as they grow up because they grow in very violent environment, families. So they don't know how to treat others with love, compassion. So they end up becoming violent. But then in a certain life, they meet certain individuals who are very kind, compassionate, caring, loving. Slowly, they started to change. Because now they can feel the love and compassion, which they have never felt before. Once they feel love and compassion, then their action, their attitude also change. A lot of individuals leaders who are very aggressive and violent, a lot of them, they didn't experience true love and compassion, you know. Mm. So, again, as I mentioned this morning, as you know, also, you know, someone who is very dear to you, kind to you, compassionate to you, loving to you, someone who is very dear to you, someone who has been very nice, kind, compassionate, caring, affectionate to you, showing concern and all of that. When they are in a problem, you know, you feel compassion for them. You don't have to meditate, you don't have to train your mind. Just feel compassion. You just feel, you know, you just wish their problem will go away. You just wish their suffering will go away. You just wish, you know, I wish I could do something to help them to reduce their pain, to relieve of their pain. Not only you feel that way, you are willing to help in whatever way you can to reduce and relieve that suffering and pain. Even without, you don't have to meditate on that. Do you get it? To feel that compassion. You don't have to meditate, you feel it. But we don't feel same way someone, those who make our life more difficult, more miserable. Since we don't feel that way, then we have to put more effort to practice. That is where practice comes. If you don't put practice and meditations to feel compassion and such, then there's no point of practicing the love and compassion, meditating, because for those close ones, even without meditation, we can feel it. Do you get it? Even if we have never been introduced to Dharma, they feel the same way we feel it. Even who doesn't have been exposed to meditations, Dharma, any spiritual path, even they can feel that kind of compassion for their loved one, dear one, near one, who have been kind, caring, love for them. What makes difference is that when you are able to feel love and compassion for even those who have not been so nice and kind to you, if you can feel it, that is unique. That shows that you have practice, because that doesn't come naturally for everyone. It requires certain practice, meditations. That is certain sign of that you have meditated or you have practiced and you have made some progress. Feeling compassion on those who are nice, kind to us, even before you met Dharma, you still felt that way to your loved one, dear ones. It's not something that you have learned after you become you meet the Dharma and after your practice. You already felt that way before. Progress is that before you met Dharma, before you practice, that certain things you had struggles to feel compassion for those people. And if you can still feel at least not so much anger, less anger, that is still some progress. Before maybe you have rages, maybe you don't have rages now, maybe you still feel a little anger, but it's not as bad as before. That is some progress. Again, we'll also have to look from that perspective as well. And even if we feel angry sometimes, you don't allow yourself to caught up in that and that, you try to, oh, I shouldn't have that angry, or I should try to reduce, we do certain practice. That is also some progress. But, if we can really feel compassion, then that is where the practice of compassion have progressed really high. And if you can feel compassion for those who make your life more difficult, directly or indirectly, sometimes they make your life difficult directly. Sometimes they make your life difficult, not directly, but because of the situation in the world that you also face, the pain of that, just like what we see now in the world, the war, or other things, even though we are not felt directly the suffering of that, but we all feel indirectly the consequences of that. And sometimes that bothers us. Your life was much easier before, and now it has been more difficult. Maybe before we had less difficulty with supply chain. Now we have more difficult supply chain. You are not getting the things as quick as you used to get. That bothers you. How come, I used to be able to get when I order in a week, 2, now it's taking a month. And then of course, because of the COVID, because of the war, everything that has affected this. So that should be our goal. Spiritual goal is to work harder to feel compassion of those who make the life more difficult. If we can feel compassion on that, then to expand compassion on all other sentient beings will be easy. The most difficult to feel compassion will be the one who make our life miserable and difficult. If we can feel compassion for, then all the rest sentient beings, to feel compassion for them will be easier. And so that is the biggest blockage or wall to feel compassion on all sentient beings. And so we have to break down that wall, to destroy that wall and focus on that so that we can destroy that wall. And once destroying that wall, once you can feel that for that person, then it wouldn't be so difficult to feel compassion for all sentient beings. Because if we cannot feel compassion, and if we are being overwhelmed by anger and hatred, then we experience already, for example, during last 2-3 years, because of the COVID, it became very challenging for everyone in so many different ways, the way we travel, the way, everything's business, jobs, in so many different levels and so many peoples. There isn't hardly anyone who has not been touched by that, and including, the war, the climate change and consequence of that climate change, So there is all these challenges, problems, you can say, already there. We all experience that. On top of that, then your mind starts becoming angry and upset. For whatever, for whoever. You create more suffering for yourself. The others, maybe we can't do so much by ourselves. It needs a lot of collective actions, collective policies from so many beings, to change instead of war, to have peace. So many leaders, so many people have to agree to certain things. To end the COVID, you have to find certain things, cure whatever and all of that, which is not, I cannot fix that myself. Even I want to fix it. The climate change, the effect of the climate change, the consequences come, there's very little I can do to change that immediately. I can contribute a little bit myself in what I do or not, but it requires a lot of policy changes, a lot of collective effort of the being who live in here. Probably it takes time to see the better change in that. But in terms of my emotions, my anger, I can deal with myself. I don't have to wait for others to fix it. Neither other can fix it. That one, if anyone who can fix it, is yourself. And you can do now. But if we don't try to work with our mind, and if we allow our minds to be, because of all these challenges, difficulties, pain, if we allow our mind to be disturbed by those things, agitated by those things, situations, allow our mind to be so angry, hateful, righteous, then you are, it's like there is a small fire, and now you have add huge kerosene, now the whole house is on fire, something like that. You multiply the pain, suffering. You create the suffering more for yourself. And the consequences of such mental suffering is much more than the suffering that we experience from the external factors. On immediate level and long-term level. Immediately on level, you totally lose your mental peace. You totally lose your mental tranquility, the stillness of your mind, and we also talk you lose the ability to make the right decisions. And you create yourself and put yourself in the most vulnerable space, situations. I feel like if you really want to get to your enemy, the first thing you make is to make them angry. Then they become most vulnerable and make the most silly mistake. And that is when we get so angry, we put ourselves in that situation, that position, to become most vulnerable, because we are more likely to make the mistake. The mistake we will not make normally when you are in that, not that state of mind. And so therefore, you feel most vulnerable, and on the other hand, when you are able to develop more love, compassion, then you protect yourself, you protect others, it protect everyone. It bring your mind to ease, peace, calm. And with that calm mind, you will be able to use your mind better, your decision better. able to use your intelligence, wisdom better, and you are able to, create less tensions, whatever conflict, whatever tension there is, you create better environment to solve the problem. When there's anger, I don't think you don't create better environment to solve the problem. You create environment to make the situation much worse. So so that's why we need to develop even more focus and make more effort to trying to cultivate love and compassion, especially in the most difficult time towards most difficult sentient beings, different individuals. So I think that is the topic of today. And again, when we come, maybe again we can discuss little bit some different practice meditations to cultivate loving kindness, compassion. This morning we kind of tried to do one particular practice, and then we'll try to do another different practice. And real compassion, true compassion is, not just wishing others to be free of their suffering and cause of suffering, but making the firm commitment to do it yourself, Of course, first you wish them to be free of suffering and cause suffering, but that making the firm commitment that I will relieve them of suffering, cause of suffering. I will release them their suffering, cause of suffering. So that is even more stronger kind of, especially we didn't go through that, like when you do a more longer versions, then you start with, kind of your compassion's mind with a more lighter weight, and then it becomes more stronger and more stronger. So for example, we can, as you have seen, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and cause of suffering. That's your inspirations, How great it would be, how wonderful it would be, how beautiful it would be if everyone is free from suffering and cause of suffering. Then it's wonderful inspiration, but you want to build even stronger inspiration that, and that stronger is, may they be free from suffering and cause of suffering. So it's not how wonderful it would be, but actually, may they be, you wish them to be free of suffering or cause of suffering. That mind is even more stronger. And then next, may I be able to free them from suffering and cause of suffering. Now you are making even more stronger commitments, firm commitment. Not only may they be free of suffering and cause of suffering, but without me getting involved in that, here I myself will free them from suffering and cause of suffering. So then that is even more stronger. And so that is the, true compassion, great compassion, taking the responsibility on yourself to do that. And it is a big responsibility. And then, we need any help from all the holy objects and everyone, whoever, So therefore, then we request for the blessings of the gurus, the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, all the holy objects. And then, please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do that. So you make the commitment to free everyone from suffering, cause of suffering, and please support me, bless me, give me confidence, give me inspirations to be able to do that, because we do need that. And so that is, when you do the more, when you have time and you want to build up slowly, again, that is one way you can do that too. So yeah, we will, maybe we will have a break, half-hour tea break. If you need to use tea, coffee, stress out, and then we meet at 3. Thank you. And I will take some questions. So, does anyone have any questions from afternoon session or from this morning sessions as well? Yes, please.
I just wanted to ask in regard to compassion and the practice of compassion. Does that kind of cancel out forgiveness? The concept of forgiveness that we generally inherited in our white culture. So is that right?
Yeah, I think when I feel like when someone has able to feel real, true love and compassion, and no more bitter feelings, when you are able to feel true love and compassion with someone, that means you have no more bitter feelings, bad feelings. That means you have forgiven. Forgiving is letting go of that bitter feeling you had from that person's and not being able to let it go. So I think if someone really have true compassion, if someone can really feel true compassion, love for someone, then they wouldn't have any bitter feelings. Whatever happened in the past, he or she has been able to let it go and not hold on that, no bad feeling, no bitter feeling, and that will be forgiving. That will be my understanding. But I could be wrong. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask, so how close is true compassion to bodhicitta? Or is it the same? Or will it be the same? Yeah.
When you have great compassion, then you are very close to bodhicitta. In terms of training the mind, whether you use this particular technique of meditation of 7 point of cause and effect, or you use the other technique of equalizing, exchanging self with others. So both are 2 different techniques of meditation to cultivate the bodhicitta mind. And in terms of 7 cause, 7 point of cause and effect, the great compassion comes to point number 5. 7 is the bodhicitta. So the only things that remain in between that is what we call haksam, which is translated as higher attitude or special attitude, And so you are very close to bodhicitta, and then in terms of equalizing, exchanging self with others, the fifth point, again, in that meditation, there are 5 points of meditation. And the fifth one is what we call Tonglen, taking and giving practice, in order to cultivate a strong level of love and compassion. So again, the meditation is to improve and increase the level of love and compassion. And so again, through that practice, you are able to develop great compassion. And then next will be the bodhicitta. So it is not same mind. The bodhicitta mind and compassion is not the same mind, but you are very close to that when you have great compassion. As I mentioned this morning, great compassion, how it is described in the teaching or Buddhist psychology is, is a mental state or mental factors that wish others to be free of suffering or cause of suffering. That is the compassion. The love is loving kindness that wish others to have happiness and cause of happiness. And the bodhicitta mind is with that compassion mind, in order to be with that compassion mind, then you want to be help and benefit to others. You want to liberate from their suffering, cause of sufferings. You want to lead them to ultimate happiness, cause of happiness. But you are unable to do at the moment because you yourself is unenlightened. Even though you have the wish to do that, it's like, someone who doesn't know how to swim, and then you and someone has been carried away by the current of the water, and you really want to save that person, but you can't save because you are unable to take care of yourself, and you are unable to save that person because you don't have the capacity, even though in terms of the mind, you really want to save that person. Similarly, in terms of compassion, we really want to be greatest help, benefit to others, but because we are also unenlightened now, and so then we cannot help them to be enlightened, fully enlightened with that experience. And so then the wish to achieve that fully enlightened state comes very strongly. The inspiration, the wish to achieve the Buddhahood or fully enlightenment. And that mind, the wish to achieve fully enlightenment, that is induced or driven by that great compassion, the wish to benefit others, is the bodhicitta mind. So the bodhicitta mind, bodhicitta mind is a Sanskrit term, so bodhi means, enlightenment or awakening state, mind. Citta is the mind of awakening, the mind of enlightenment. In other words, the mind or inspiration to achieve enlightenment to be greatest benefit to others. So that is bodhicitta mind. And so that is different mind from the compassion mind that wish others to be free of suffering, cause of suffering. So technically, if you want to be very precise, that is how it is. There is a difference. But sometimes when teachers explain in general, then sometimes they might present as almost like same, But actually, if you try to be more precise, they are not same. Bodhicitta will be the result of great compassion. Great compassion will be the cause of the bodhicitta mind. Yes, eh?
It kind of answers the question. I was going to ask about, you practice compassion towards somebody that's continually, causing upset in your life, and I know you can't change their mind, so is the answer just to keep working continually on your own mind so that you don't have that reaction and you don't see it as like this constant thing that's happening?
Yes.
Yeah, so like even when it's not necessarily just you, but other people, like say in a workplace situation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the way someone acts affects your whole team.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
try and keep it, you know, together and not do it. But is that just a case of, you know, me, you know, sort of practicing compassion more than what I am, so that I'm not getting that reaction?
Yes, I think the best is to work with our own mind, as you mentioned. We can't change someone's mind. We wish we could change, but we might be able to inspire them to change. We might be able to encourage them to change. We might be able to open their mind to change, but they have to change themselves. We can't change them, and so, and the more we are able to practice compassion, the less it affects us of their actions negatively, and if their action doesn't affect you negatively, then you don't have to be so upset and angry. And not being angry and upset doesn't disturb your peace, inner peace, your state of mind. And also, we don't create an environment where we could become violent because of that anger to others and oneself. So it's main thing is working with our own mind, and when we are able to work with our mind, then like Buddha, for example, someone like Buddha, you don't have to be Buddha, even when you are in Bodhisattva path, it can have, but highest level, the Buddha, because he have worked with his mind, from his side, there is no anger, there is no ignorance, there's no all delusions, and full of unconditional, unbiased love, compassion, So, of course, there are different individuals. Some criticize him, some praise him. Even in Buddha's time, not everyone was saying, "Oh, you are so great." There were a lot of people who follow him, his teachings, hold him high regard, took them as their guidance, teachers. And there were a lot of people who criticize him, who compete with him, who say all kind of bad things, who try to physically hurt him, harm him, but those action doesn't affect his mind. His mind is always same, calm, peaceful, loving, compassion. Someone from here criticizing him, someone from here making offerings, his mind is equally same to them, same love, same compassion. Someone is trying to hurt him physically, someone trying to protect him, his love, compassion is same, equal to them. So other people's behavior or actions doesn't affect his mind in negative way. And if it doesn't affect negative way, if you don't have to feel negative, then your mind is always calm and peaceful, regardless of what the situation, regardless how people treat you or not treat you, And I think if we can be in that state, that would be wonderful. And the whole idea is to be in that, to reach that state, that your mind is not affected, your happiness not affected, your peaceful mind is not affected by others' actions and behavior. That doesn't mean, you become passive and not take any actions when by taking action, harm can be reduced to whoever that is directed, but it is with what level of mind that you take these, actions. Take action, not take action, with what state of mind, that is the key. If possible, we try to take actions to stop such harmful actions of someone, if there is a way to do that, with a compassionate and kind mind. Even we cannot feel compassion and kind, at least we don't have so much anger. We try to take action without so much anger, and that is the key. It's not about taking action, not taking action, is with what state of mind. So whatever action might be the best to solve the situation, but with what state of mind is the key in terms of the practice. Yes, John.
I was just going to say, Geshe, one of the things that I've found helpful, I don't know if it's correct or not, but from what I understand, the definition of a delusion is anything that disturbs the mind. So a lot of times you'll get a situation where you don't even recognize that anger is a delusion. You think it has such justification that it doesn't even dawn on you. And then if you do think, oh, it's just I'm getting angry, that's wrong. It's sort of difficult to put into practice. If you know in your own mind, oh, that's a delusion in my own mind. Oh, I can let that go. It's a lot of it takes the person that you've had or the conflict with or out of the equation. It's just you in your own head thinking, oh, that's a delusion, I'll let it go. I found it helpful because it just seems that is so, to me, clear that whenever mind gets disturbed, I'm suffering from these delusions. I don't know it. And then you get the time to have a look at it. What is it really?
Yeah. I think that is correct. And it's helping you. That is wonderful. I think practice meditations are those that whichever help us to reduce our negative feelings, emotions, delusions. That is what it is. Whatever form of practice, meditations, and definitely, as you mentioned, that is when you recognize it's your delusion, then it gives you you become in charge of that.
Yeah, that's right. You don't feel you're going to take it out of that other person.
Yeah. On others one, if you blame the others for your situation, then you are not in charge. That person is in charge of that. Whether it's going to make things better or good, it depends on his actions, his behavior, his attitude. You lose total control of your own experience. The moment we realize and recognize it is actually my own mind, then since we can take in charge of our mind and we can change it. So therefore, then you become your own protectors and your own friend. So yeah. Any other questions?
Well, just have one.
Yes, please.
I don't quite understand merit.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking like, is that the kind of accumulated, karma and resonance that you have acquired over a long time?
I think.
Or you've lost, and then is that what merit is about?
I think merit is subject concept, I think a lot of Westerners struggles. It seems like. And I don't know, sometimes maybe it is something to do with the translations too. Translations.
Translation.
In Tibetan, we call sonam, because I think that, so anyway, again, there are two kinds of positive energy, okay, or virtuous energy. You can say that we create, sometimes we call two collections. The collection of wisdom and collection of the merit, okay? And what it means is through certain mental state or practice, through wisdom, then we create certain cause and conditions. That's the collection of that. And then through certain other practice, such as loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, making offerings to the holy objects like Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, making generosity to those who are in the needs, or through the practice of moral discipline, patience, and so forth, what we call method, the practice from the method, different practice of method, through that you create certain positive energy, certain virtues. And that is what we call collection of merit. So there is a virtues or positive energy that we create from certain practice through the method, and there are certain virtues or positive energy we create through the wisdom. And then one is called merit, one is called the collection of merit and collection of wisdom, and the merit, in terms of the Buddha, the merit is the cause of Rupakaya, the form body, and form body. And then wisdom is the cause of Dharmakaya, Buddha. So when we talk about the Buddha, we can talk about, 2 kayas, 3 kayas, 4 kayas. When you talk 2 kayas, or two bodies, if you translate in English. But when you say body, it doesn't, we are not talking about physical body like this. But I think you can't find the right words. So there you still have to use the bodies. In Sanskrit, it's kaya, And so when you achieve enlightenment, your mind becomes enlightened mind, and your body transforms in enlightened body. And the cause, primary cause or substantial cause of that Buddha's enlightened body is the merit. And the substantial cause for that enlightened mind, Dharmakaya, is that wisdom. And that also the merit play a role in creating the conducive conditions for any, spiritual realizations or experience to develop, arises in order to have to be able to develop realization or experience of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, wisdom, and all others. We need to have conducive conditions. And the conducive conditions, that merit or that positive energy of the virtues play the role of conducive conditions. So that is why merit is important. I think I mentioned on the Thursday when we did the Tara practice about the important role of creating merit and purifications in our spiritual path, on top of meditations. Of course, we try to contemplate and meditate whatever subject, whether we are trying to meditate and contemplate on refuge or Guru Yoga or, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, or emptiness, whatever subject that we want to meditate on, contemplate on, in order to have that meditation or contemplative to become a successful. So we have the spiritual realization, spiritual experience from that meditations. Then there are many factors. Just meditation itself is not enough. We need to clear the obstacles, and purification play that role, clearing the obstacles. Not only we need to clear the obstacle, we need to create the conducive conditions. And creating the merit play the role of creating conducive conditions. And as I give the example, when you plant a seed, it's not enough just to have seed. To that seed to grow its full potential fruit plant, you need to clear obstacles for it to grow fully. And you need to create conducive conditions. That means, soil, right soil, water, fertilizer, heat, everything you need. And those conducive conditions, merit play those conducive conditions in the spiritual growth. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Any others? If not, then we can do a short meditations. Again, we will try to do short meditation on the practice of Tonglen, okay, taking and giving. And Tonglen is, again, as I mentioned, is a very powerful practice meditation to cultivate loving kindness, compassion. That is the main, purpose of doing Tonglen. Whether we can really take someone suffering or not, that is something else, If we cannot take someone suffering, then why we do this practice? Because we want to develop love and compassion. That is why. Because we want to train our mind to be more courageous. At the moment, we feel, and I don't want any more sufferings. I don't want any more problems. I have more than I can deal with. I already have more than I can deal with. So our mind is fearful of having more problems. Our mind is fearful of taking on suffering. And therefore our mind is not as courageous as the bodhisattvas. Not strong as the bodhisattva's mind. So through this training, we train to be more courageous, and through visualizations, we try to take on other sufferings and the cause of other suffering on ourselves. So by doing that kind of practice, it is kind of training your mind to be more courageous and not to be afraid of taking on sufferings. And through that, your mind becomes more and more courageous, more and more strong, inner strength. And same giving is, again, at the moment, we are afraid to give. We are afraid to give our happiness, our virtues. We also want to keep for ourselves. We feel if I give them, what will be left for me? As Shantideva said in his bodhisattva way of life, thinking, if I give to others, what will be left for me is the way of thinking selfish, non-bodhisattva selfish. But thinking, if I enjoy myself, what will be there left to give to others? That is the bodhisattva attitude. If I enjoy everything myself, what will be there left to share with others, to give to others? So such is the bodhisattva attitude, very different from our ordinary selfish attitude. And so because of that kind of our strong selfish attitude, self-grasping, strong attachment at the moment, Even we have more than enough to share, we are afraid to share. Even though when we have more than enough to practice generosity and to give or to offer, still we are afraid to do that. We are always afraid, I don't have enough. If I give that, if I share that, maybe I will not have enough. What will be left for me? What will happen to me next tomorrow? What will happen if something bad happens next week, next month, next year? So we are always, kind of fearful and afraid. Again, we don't have enough courage. The bodhisattvas they are not afraid of that. They are willing to give whatever they have, all the virtues, all the happiness, all the goodness, and such. And so again, because they are so courageous with that, and so training your mind to be more courageous and training your mind to be more strong and to develop stronger level of love and compassion. That is the purpose of doing this practice meditations on Tonglen, okay? Again, just relax. Make yourself comfortable. And let go of any expectation that we might have from any practice. Without any expectations, without any hope, we just do the practice as it comes. Being okay, whether the meditation turn out to be good or bad or not so. Just being okay with any outcome. And try to feel your weight or body on the cushion or chair. And watch your breath mindfully. Then you can try to have good intentions, motivations. For example, thinking this practice meditation become cause and condition to cultivate and fully develop true love and compassion within my mind stream and all sentient beings. May it become cause and conditions to achieve fully awakened state, the Buddhahood, in order to liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering and cause of suffering. Again, bring back your attentions to the breath. then in front of you, you can visualize and think someone who is very close to you. And someone who is more neutral, stranger, and someone you dislike most. And then try to think, all the whatever suffering, problems, challenges that's going in the life of someone you are most close to. It could be physical, mental, emotional challenge, pain, suffering. And try to feel their pain, sufferings. And try to generate a strong, compassionate mind. The wish to free them from their suffering, their pain, and to do yourself, to take on suffering yourself. So as you breathe in, imagine and visualize all the pain, suffering, and problem of that person's. Is sucked like a vacuum by that breath as you breathe in. They all come in the form of dark, smoky energy. Enter through your nostril. And where your chest is, there is a small black dot that is the self-cherishing thought. And you destroy that self-cherishing thought. And transform into loving kindness, compassion. So try to do that as you breathe in, think you are taking all their suffering and cause of suffering. Totally on yourself. And destroying your selfish attitude, self-centeredness. Not only the immediate suffering, but also all the potential that there is for the future sufferings, the cause of all the suffering, all the negative karma, all the delusion, all the obscuration. And with total convictions, without any two-minded, really think you are really taking their suffering on yourself, not just imagining. in that they are totally free from all the suffering and cause of suffering. And that you have totally taken on yourself. Now, as you breathe out, imagine and visualize giving all your virtues, all the happiness, all the excellent quality you have to offer, all of them in the form of whatever they need, transform, manifesting whatever they need. And as you breathe out, it goes in the form of white light, white energy, receiving whatever they need, and happiness, and the cause of happiness. So again, you try to do that. Again, with total convictions and without two-minded. You think, visualize that you are really giving all your happiness, all your virtues, all the excellent positive qualities. Not just visualizing, you are really giving and sending. And that they really receive all the support, all the happiness and cause of happiness. All the cause of happiness, such as, external factors, positive karma, virtuous mind, spiritual realizations. Now you try to do same to someone who is more neutral and stranger in your life. Again, try to contemplate, reflect on the suffering and problem that they are facing in their life. Just like ourselves, sometimes they have health issues, sometimes they lose, go through grief, pain of losing someone close to them. Sometimes they have problem in a relationship. Sometimes they have suffering because of the challenges and their income, job. And tormented by all the different afflictive emotions, strong desire, attachments, ignorance, anger, and so forth. And having no control over their own experience due to their karma. So try to understand their pain, suffering, and try to feel compassion. Wishing them to be free from all the suffering, cause of suffering. Wishing them all the happiness and cause of happiness. Again, as we breathe in, imagine, visualize taking all their sufferings and cause of suffering in the form of dark energy, smoke. As we breathe in, pass through our nostril, go to our chest and destroy that selfish attitude. And transform into loving kindness, compassion. So try to do that as much as possible. Again, try to feel that you are really taking on the suffering and cause of suffering, not just imagining, visualizing. Really taking on yourself. With total conviction that they are free from that suffering and cause of suffering. And you are totally taking on yourself. And that you are the experiencing instead of them. Now, as we breathe out, again, imagine, visualize all your body, wealth, virtues, all the positive karma, positive energy, sending in the form of white light as you breathe out, and transforming in whatever they want, they wish. Giving them and sending them all the happiness and cause of happiness. Really feel that you are really giving, not just imagining, visualizing, but you are really giving. You are really sending all your virtues, all your positive karma, all your excellent qualities, everything that belongs to you, positive qualities. And that they are receiving it with total conviction. Now we expand that same to someone you dislike most, someone you have conflict. Also, that person is no different from ourselves, who just want to be happy, do not want suffering. But suffering, experience so much pain and suffering just like ourselves. Physical and external challenge, problem, and internal problem and suffering. So much pain and suffering because of mental disturbance. Try to reflect, try to feel it as much as possible. Their suffering, their pain. And try to generate a compassionate feeling, wishing them to be free from their suffering, cause of suffering, and to happiness and cause of happiness. Then as you breathe in, visualize and imagine taking all their suffering and cause of suffering in the form of dark black energy of smoke entering your nostril, going through your chest, destroying the selfish attitude. And transforming loving kindness, compassion. So you try to do that a few times. But then again, try to feel that you are really taking their suffering and cause of suffering, not just imagining and visualizing. You're really taking on yourself. Then you are experiencing all their suffering and pain. And that they are free from all their suffering, cause of suffering, with total conviction. Then as we breathe out, visualize and imagine sending all your wealth, body, virtues, all the positive energy resources in the form of white light as you breathe out, and transforming in whatever that person needs. Giving them happiness and cause of happiness. Again, without thinking, you are sending and giving really you are sending and giving, not just imagine, visualizing. And that they are really receiving it. And enjoying experience the happiness and cause of happiness. Then you bring your attentions back to breath. Now you visualize, now we contemplate on the suffering of all sentient beings in systems. The suffering of extreme hot and heat in Nara. And the suffering of constant hunger and thirst in Prita, hungry ghost. And the suffering of ignorance and many other sufferings of the animals. All the suffering of human beings, of sickness, aging, death, not finding what we want, not getting what we want, encountering what we don't like, what we don't want. And the suffering of demigod, the suffering of Deva, constant fighting, the suffering of signs at the time of death. And all sentient beings, they all have the potential to experience any pain, any suffering, any problem, anytime. And no one is free from the delusion and karma. We all, sentient beings, are prisoners of our delusion and karma. That itself is suffering. When you become slave and prisoner. So with that contemplations, try to feel compassionate and loving kindness to all sentient beings. Wishing them to be free from all the suffering and cause of suffering. Wishing them to have all the happiness and cause of happiness. With that strong compassion, loving kindness, as you breathe in, imagine visualizing all the individual and general suffering of all sentient beings and the cause of suffering in the form of dark, heavy, negative energy of smoke with the breath as you breathe in. Go through the nostril and destroy the selfish attitude at your by your chest, transforming loving kindness, compassion. So try to do that a few times. Again, when you do that, think without too minded that you are really taking on their suffering, not just imagine visualizing. Really taking their suffering, cause of suffering on yourself. And that you are experiencing them. Then as we breathe out, imagine and visualize sending all your wealth, virtues, and including your body, all the positive energy, excellent qualities in the form of white light as you breathe out together with the breath. And then transforming in whatever their needs are, sentient beings' needs, giving them all the happiness and cause of happiness. Temporary happiness, ultimate happiness. And the cause of temporary happiness, ultimate happiness. Again, you try to do a few times. Again, with total convictions, you think that you are really sending and giving, not just imagining. And that they really receive and experience it. Again, you try to bring your focus back to the breath. Then we dedicate all the virtues others and oneself created for the loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, mind, and wisdom, realizing emptiness, to be generated and fully developed within the mind stream of oneself and all sentient beings. Those who are already generated, not to diminish but increase more and more. We also dedicate the virtues and the merit or the merit to achieve fully enlightenment as soon as possible and liberate all sentient beings in that fully enlightened state. Okay, then you can slowly open. So, does anyone has any questions before we do the final dedications? If not, then we go to page number 9. Gewa di nyo do ta la ma sang ge do kyo ne do ma che jang ma de pa te sa we pa shom chang jo sen jo den bo che ma ge pa na ge gyu che ge wa nyang ba me ba ya Om le kong du ke wa. May the precious view of emptiness that has not arisen grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more. Yigde kamde pende malu ba, kang le chung we sambe yeshe no, ka din chung me tin zin ya so la. So wa de so tu che lun jo jo tu tu chang xin chang pen jia wei ten zin jiang pe wei kun su to po zi qiu song gu wei le mo tu tu pa dang zhong du jie guan du xiang pen. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.